It comes back to the point. Rafalski, the shot, knocked down and touchdown. The Penguins have won the Stanley
Cup. Any chance they get? The fight clock is brought to you by Vendetta.
What's going on, all you Tanimals? Here's another edition of the Tanndemonium Sports Show here on Vendetta Sports Media Network. And, hey, what can I say? It's the Tanndemonium Sports Show. I'm joined, as always, by Jefferson Legal himself, the guy who was laying the smackdown on Denver Nuggets fans over the weekend, Jackson Law, and, of course, the boss himself, Trey Daubert's in the house, and our special guest, Pittsburgh's own Josh Taylor, will be joining us momentarily. Gentlemen, how the hell are you?
First of all, I need to know what Jackson Law is eating.
I've got a grilled cheese sandwich and some pickles.
So you're Team Pickle.
I'm Team Pickle 100%.
You don't defend me. You don't defend me when I get attacked for my pickle
I've
takes.
defended you in the past.
You've never once defended me on my pickle takes.
Well,
this is the only sports show anywhere where you're going to hear the boss of the whole company arguing with a guy while eating pickles live because he doesn't defend his pro pickle stance.
Hey, I have defended you in the past. I have made it well known I am Team Pickle.
The only time I'll eat pickles is when they're cucumbers or if they're on a sandwich that calls for pickle. Otherwise, I'm not just arbitrarily eating a pickle.
No, I'll just eat them straight, and I dump a shit ton of pepper on them.
That's absolutely disgusting. Like, ew. Like,
see, Jackson Law, you don't defend me on these. You leave me on an island.
See, here's my thing.
Sitting here eating. How can I be any more pro pickle than sitting here live eating a damn pickle?
Oh man. See, here's my thing.
Yeah, pickles are straight ass.
as he tongue rubs a pickle down before he takes a chomp out of it. See, I remember as a kid going to the freaking corner stores and kids were just buying pickles and just like munching on them and drinking the pickle juice.
Like those huge pickles that are like,
yeah. I'm like, y'all are
juice. I don't drink
like
the juice.
Ballparks.
Yeah, it's like, man, y'all, ew, come on now. If it ain't on a cheeseburger, I don't want nothing to do with it. I ain't just arbitrarily eating a pickle. I'm sorry. If it's all like that, I'll just have a cucumber. All right. I don't want no fermented ass fucking cucumber. Wow, and I probably ruined our monetization by saying the F word within the first moment of the show. But this edition,
cat's out of the bag now.
Yeah, it's true. Well, this edition of the Tanndemonium Sports Show and so much more of our content is sponsored in part by monkeyknifefight.com. You can either go to monkeyknifefight.com or download the mobile app Monkey Knife Fight. And you know what? Day of, they've got some of the hottest sports gambling tickets going on. Matter of fact, this past weekend during, what was it, UFC 255,003, where Israel Adesanya was out there working it and putting it on yet another fool. They had some awesome stuff going on with that. So make sure you go to monkeyknifefight.com, and when you use our promo code Vendetta, they will match you dollar for dollar up to $100. So when you put in $100, you getting $200. Shout out to Joe Compton, the man that helped teach us what we needed to know to be able to go live. He's on with the real sour pickle. And hey, Joe Compton loves them big and sour. That's the way he operates. Trey, do you like them big and sour too? Is that how you operate?
I'm usually straight down the middle with the dill pickles. That's what
Gotcha.
I usually roll with.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And Jackson, you just like whatever fits in your mouth. I can tell. Yeah, thanks for getting rid of that mayo on your lip too. That's pretty gross.
Yeah,
looking like you're in a '70s movie, but
Yeah, no
we're not going that deep into it. But all right, you know what? Let's dive right in because I mean, there's a lot of stuff to talk about. I really want to talk about, you know, what happened over the weekend, but with Israel Adesanya but we don't really talk a lot of UFC as of yet. Once I get the corporate account to be able to get the UFC pay-per-views when they come out, I'll be doing it a lot more. I'll do it a lot
That's
more.
news to Trey.
Trey's like, wait,
Corporate account? What?
Yeah, well, you know, we're getting big time. We're live now. There's a big company retreat that I'm not traveling to because I'm afraid of traveling. I'm just busting Trey's balls. I can live stream that stuff from so many other places.
We did all company meetings on Cheese this week. It just came out. So
yeah,
all company updates. It was an hour long.
Nice.
Vegas
and of course, we had a very interesting company meeting on Sunday.
Yes, we did.
And then there was, of course, Vendetta Survivor, which I'm a huge
second episode.
The second episode. Now, for those that don't know, and Courtney, whenever our special guest, Mr. Josh Taylor, is ready, you can bring him on in because, I mean, hey, it's not like we're hiding corporate secrets. We're freaking live here. So for Vendetta Survivor, this is a thing we do because, see, Trey is a workhorse. Trey is not only doing the back alley business deals, you know, where that you know, new show booker Kane wishes that he could pull off as many, but he gets it done. But Trey also does a lot of writing on the site. If you go to vendettasportsmedia.com, you'll see that. But what really irks Trey off is when Trey by himself outposts our entire writing team. And honestly, I'll put cats on blast, and I'll put cats on blast because I'm not a writer. Josh Taylor's in the house. Josh Taylor, Mr. Pittsburgh Sports Media himself. Josh Taylor, how the hell are you?
I'm good, man. How you been?
Doing good, my brother. Doing real good. Congratulations on the newest addition to the Taylor clan.
Thank you, man.
There's more of y'all than there. You're like the Pittsburgh version of the Wayans now.
I wouldn't go that far. It's only number one for me, but my siblings have 3 apiece, so it's my brother and my sister have 3 apiece. But yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, we're about the Wayans clan. So I'm giving some insider tips on how Vendetta works. So basically,
nice to meet you, Josh. By the way, I'm Trey.
Yeah,
nice to meet you, fellas.
Trey Daubert is the boss of bosses here at Vendetta. Jackson, of course, is the co-host of the show, and one of the guys that I see is Trey's second in command because he doesn't want the position. That's a whole different thing altogether. But see, when we're on vendettasportsmedia.com, we've got writers, and then we've got Trey. And when Trey outposts all of the writing team of 40 people, that makes Trey grumpy. And it kind of makes me roll my eyes too. Because here's the thing. I'm not a writer. But when I first came to Vendetta, I told Trey, this is what I'm bringing to the table. I am a talking head. I will come on here and I will talk for as long as you need me to talk when we're bringing people in.
He's not kidding. It's true. He will talk as long as he needs to talk.
I'm aware at this point.
But I am not a reporter. I am not a reporter-style writer. I'm a novelist, but I'm not a reporter-style writer. So I will do as many shows per week as you want me to do. As many as I can get away with doing, as time permits. Trey said, cool, because see, unlike some folks, I'm an adult. So I'm upfront with my boss about what I can and cannot offer to the company.
Which is all I ask.
Yeah. But see, a lot of folks, Josh, they feel like they can just do whatever they want. This is all just a party. We're taking a trip to Mexico. And, you know, I'm going to sit in the kiddie pool and eat hot dogs that fall in the water. So we do a thing called Vendetta Survivor, where Trey and other individuals that have posted on the site will bring up the people that are in the hottest of hot water. And then whoever gets the most vote is voted off the island. So it's a public execution.
Yeah.
And it's really fun. It's really fun to listen to because, and I retweeted this, You don't want to be on the island? Do your freaking job. Am I right, Jackson Law?
Yeah, this company's not run like any other.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy. Just, if you're going to miss a couple of days or just an afternoon, just be like, hey.
Yeah,
we're in the Slack. It takes 5 seconds.
Yeah,
you don't even have to explain yourself. You could just say, hey, something came up. I'm not going to be available.
Right. See, we're a little different than what Josh Taylor's used to. See, Josh Taylor is a professional. Josh Taylor is on the radio here on 93.7 The Fan here in Pittsburgh. And Josh has also you've been on KDKA as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm doing the majority of the work I'm doing now is with KDKA TV. So it's been pretty much since July, August. Are you talking about KDKA radio? No, I'm not. No. I'm not on the AM side specifically.
You're strictly on the TV. So Josh is on TV. See now, but Josh has been on 1020 KDKA, the very first radio station to hit the airwaves in these continental United States here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He's also been on 93.7 The Fan, which is the flagship sports station here in Pittsburgh, not that other one that's run by those 4 letters that we don't mention here on Vendetta. One starts with an E, but we don't talk about them. But yeah, Josh Taylor, you do your stuff on KDKA TV. So I feel like you're a huge get to come here and talk sports.
If I'm a huge get, then you guys got a long way to go. That's all I'm saying.
We absolutely do.
And this is why you've been one of my best friends since high school.
There's some names you could get that are probably bigger than mine. I mean, I work alongside Bob Pompiani, and that man in my eyes is the greatest of all time. He's the GOAT as far as the Pittsburgh market goes.
Bob Pompiani is absolutely the GOAT. Bob Pompiani, for those that aren't from Pittsburgh, Bob Pompiani is the guy that anyone that comes up in Pittsburgh with dreams of being a sports guy, that's who we all wanted to be growing up. All right. We didn't want to be Stagger. We didn't want to be Staggerwalds. We wanted to be Pompianis. Although
I just wanted to be in the building. I was happy to be I'm happy to be in the seat next to the man. Honestly, I'm like Robin Harris at this point. I'm the man sitting next to the man. I'm good with that at this particular juncture. Now, if long after when he's gone, and I say long after because he has no signs of slowing down. But long after when he's off the scene, we'll see. It'll be open territory at this point. But for right now, man, he's the man holding the axe at this point.
It'll be Josh Taylor then, and I'll be like, yeah, see, we had Josh Taylor on the Tanndemonium Sports Show once, or for a summer, for as long as we can get him. But
it might be like Joe Piscopo in John Dangerously. What? Shout out to everybody who got that reference.
You know I got that reference. So we're going to get into some baseball, and that's part of the reason because, see, Trey is not just a hockey guy now. He's not just hockey guy Trey, but he's also baseball guy Trey. And we actually had Sean Gibson, the great-grandson of Josh Gibson, on the show as well. We got to try to get him back on here as well.
Co-wrote a book with Sean.
That's awesome. See?
Yeah. Unlucky 21. Check it out.
Definitely. You know what, Courtney, if you could get the get that link or whatever, just put it out there in the comments. That'd be awesome. But let's go into the NFL right now, because there's definitely a Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey circus coming out of the Le'Veon Bell camp yet again.
Oh, man.
Over the weekend, Le'Veon Bell got very, very vocal and stated that he would, quote, never play for Andy Reid again. I'd retire first. Now, guys, looking at Le'Veon's stats, and I saw this meme, so I'm stealing it from the meme. My brother been retired since about 2017, 2018, right?
Look, there's so many layers to everything that involves Le'Veon Bell, so it's hard to pick just one place to start. But I find two major problems with what he said. One, the big problem I have is that when he signed on with Kansas City, when they picked him up after he left the Jets, I believe he signed on with Kansas City after he left the Jets, because I'm pretty sure that wasn't.
He was cut. He was cut by the Jets, and he was signed as a free agent by Kansas City.
That's what I thought. So from the moment he signed on there, it had to be pretty much understood that maybe by everybody but him that he was not going to be the guy, because the Chiefs had just drafted a running back at the end of the first round. They had just drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So everybody who understood both how the draft worked, how the Chiefs were structured, and who LSU was from the season before, we all knew who Clyde Edwards-Helaire was, and we knew what his role with the Chiefs was going to be, right? That could be, collectively assumed and understood.
I think so. Jackson.
If he wanted more carries, he should have signed with Miami.
Exactly. Like you're not going to sign him with the team that just drafts the guy. But you're not going to sign with the team that drafts the guy off a national champion in the first round and assume, okay, I'm going to beat that guy out. No, because if that was the case, they would have brought you on a lot sooner than midseason after you got cut by another team. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's the first problem.
They got cut by the Jets.
Right. And you got cut. Exactly. You got cut by the Jets. Then you showed up under some assumption that maybe you were going to be the guy. No, that's the first problem I have with it. The second problem I have with it is if we're keeping track here, if we're doing the math, that is now 2 coaches that are pretty much in the top tier of the NFL that Le'Veon Bell has now burned bridges with. And oh yeah, by the way, both guys will probably end up in the Hall of Fame. So now you've burned bridges with both of those guys. How do you expect to be employable after this? I love how he says, I'll retire before I go play for Andy Reid again. I'm sitting there going, bro, you might as well retire now because who's going to want you to play for them now? You just burned Andy Reid and you burned Mike Tomlin. What are we talking about here? Burned 2 guys who are going to the Hall of Fame. They're going to have yellow jackets in Canton. You probably won't now because you're too busy burning bridges.
You're not even going to be mentioned in the conversation.
Oh, he'll be mentioned on the ballot because after a certain number of years you become eligible. But that's where the discussion will start and end. And that'll be it.
I mean, if Eric Pegram isn't getting mentioned, if Barry Foster isn't getting mentioned, if Bam Morris isn't getting mentioned, and you know what? I'll even come out of Pittsburgh. All right. I'll come out of Pittsburgh. If what was his name? Kevin Mack. Kevin Mack
was a really good running back for Cleveland.
He was a great running back, but he ain't mentioned in Hall of Fame. Talk Kevin Mack for the very, very young ones with the Cleveland Browns.
It's worth pointing out Le'Veon Bell had numbers and all those guys you mentioned for the Steelers. So I mean,
yeah.
I've always had a take on Le'Veon Bell, and since we have 2 Pittsburgh guys, I'd love to hear their opinions on it.
Please.
When Le'Veon Bell got drafted, he was a 245-pound running back at a Michigan State who really couldn't move that well. Yeah. Mike Tomlin developed him into the guy that he was. He made him lose 35 pounds. He said, you're going to catch the ball. You're going to be our workhorse. He invented his style of running. If he goes to Cincinnati, Gio Bernard's probably the better running back. So I think he's completely delusional. He should be thanking those guys rather than, oh, I'm just better than those guys. No, you weren't. You were a 245-pound slug.
There's a lot to be said about how his career with the Steelers actually developed and blossomed over time. Because
absolutely. Well, that offensive line adapted to
how many running backs and receivers have gone to Pittsburgh and stunk?
That's a list that's longer than you think. But
yeah,
the center crux of the argument is honestly that this is a guy who started to really become a workhorse type guy when the rest of the league was moving away from workhorse type guys. It was becoming cheaper to have running backs by committee. It was becoming cheaper to have guys. Maybe you can have a guy that can carry the bulk of the carries. Maybe you have a third down guy. Maybe you have a short yardage and a goal line guy. We saw teams working around that dynamic. For the record, how many times did we see New England either get to a Super Bowl or win a Super Bowl with a running back by committee? It was pretty much understood. You knew Dion Lewis was going to get carries. You knew LeGarrette Blount when he was there was going to get carries. You knew Kevin Falk at one time was going to get a bunch of stuff. But there was also a certain point where you had guys dividing up roles. James White's time in New England, you knew if it was third down or inside the red zone, James White had a good chance of catching some passes and maybe scoring a touchdown.
That was Tampa this year too, right?
Yeah, that was
just his role.
That's just the
his role. The third down guy was okay. He's going to come in. He's going to catch passes for us. He'll be dangerous in third downs. He'll be dangerous in the goal line. Why? Because he's a matchup nightmare for whatever linebacker is placed with him. And you can't tell me that when that third down or that goal line situation didn't happen, Tom Brady's looking around and going, okay, that's my matchup on James White. I'm going to him. But that was the trend as it was starting in the league. As Le'Veon Bell was starting to hit his peak as a Steeler, as he's hitting that peak, the rest of the league is going in another direction. They're going away from that and trying to get running back by committee to be a more important thing. So for him to have that part of his career and then come out and say, oh, I wanted to be a Steeler, but they didn't want to pay me what I wanted. Well, yeah, because for the most part, towards the end of his time there, he became a bigger problem than what he was worth. He drove
kept
down
getting
his own
hurt.
value.
And
he could have
getting
signed that
hurt.
franchise tag, and he would have made more money.
Running backs getting hurt, you kind of can't blame them because that's pretty much par for the course.
I mean, yeah,
running backs get hurt in the league every day, so I can't blame that on him.
But
however,
Chris Henry lasts longer per season than Le'Veon Bell did.
I wouldn't go that far. You might want to go back and look back at numbers, bro. His production and longevity was actually pretty good.
What,
but by comparison here,
I mean, yeah, I meant Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry, Chris Henry, two different dudes for the record.
Yeah. Derrick Henry.
I had a feeling that's who he was.
Yeah, Derrick Henry's because Le'Veon Bell hadn't played. I think he had only played an entire season with the Steelers. Once, and all the rest of the time he was either getting hurt going into the playoffs or coming
knee
up
problems.
injury.
And he got suspended a couple times.
But there were a lot of double-digit game seasons there, though. And I'll come back to this again. Running backs getting hurt in the NFL is not like some out-of-nowhere thing. There's a reason why their shelf life is so long on
poor Todd Gurley. Poor Todd Gurley.
I'll also point this out, too, because his first 3 seasons were actually really good. Because I can't sit here and trash the man and say he did X, Y, and Z without acknowledging the fact that he was like 22 years old and came really close to coming close to doing 2,000 yards from scrimmage as a running back, and only a couple other guys had done that, like Marshall Faulk and Edgerrin James. Not a lot of guys had done that. So the early part of his career, he actually was extremely productive.
Very promising.
So I can't put the injury thing on him because it's a position where injuries are just so commonplace. So it's hard to do that. What I will say that hurts him is all of the off-field issues that surround him. Particularly, and this is the thing that I don't care what anything else you do. If you do this one thing, you're going to be labeled stupid to the day you die. The day you're leaving for a preseason game, you and a teammate riding in the car, smoking weed in the car on the middle of a highway, driving to leave for a preseason game, and you get pulled over, and the officer's like, so what are you guys doing? And you get excited for that. Like that,
especially in that section of the city.
In that part of the city,
and he got suspended for it.
And
yes, he did.
And got in trouble for it. Now, you can tell me everything else about how productive a guy is, but when you do that one thing, the word stupid should be tattooed on your forehead because clearly that you've exhibited that's what you've become. Now that's just my commentary on that.
Oh, you know, one thing I'll say for those that don't know is when you get to Pittsburgh, you know the areas of the city that you can get away with stuff in. And you know the stuff in theory. And you also know where you can't get away with stuff at. And when you're a person of color, you learn that even faster. The learning curve is just different.
In theory.
So when you're in the North Hills section of Pittsburgh in Ross Township, you just know that's not where you go. If you're going to do that, you need to be at the East End. You need to be, not even the East End, really. You need to be closer to like the South Side. You don't want to do that stuff out there on McKnight Road. And that's exactly where they caught him and LeGarrette Blount. But because LeGarrette Blount was a free agent signing and Le'Veon Bell is this, what was he, a third rounder? That had a lot, second rounder with so much promise. That was a no-brainer of who was going to catch the brunt of that.
Well, it also didn't help that during that time period, specifically during that time period, remember how LeGarrette Blount ended up leaving the Steelers? Mm-hmm. Remember the game when that all happened, that Monday night game in Nashville, where they played against the Titans and they had that lead, and the guy who pretty much closed out that game was Le'Veon Bell, and it was not LeGarrette Blount. Mm-hmm. And LeGarrette Blount pretty much walked off away from the team and like tried to leave before everybody else was ready to go. There were signs there, pretty much tried to leave before the end of the game, I should say. There were signs there that things weren't okay.
Yeah.
And it kind of comes back to the point that Le'Veon Bell had pretty much been anointed as that guy who could have that kind of volume because they were willing to let LeGarrette Blount sit to give Le'Veon Bell the bulk of the carries in that game to close out a game against Tennessee on national television. That should have told you then just how much faith they had in him. And that's how much faith that he flushed down the toilet.
Yep.
I just don't think it was an accident that he was not just bad with the Jets. He was a full-blown disaster.
He was also with the Jets, so just about everything with the Jets is a full-blown disaster. Just to, the caveat there.
And his head coach was Adam Gase.
And his head
Gase
coach is Adam Gase, which is also a caveat to be tagged with the potential.
He gained a bunch of weight. He looked slow. Like a lot of it was on him too.
Well, when you're sitting out to jump on jet skis and party,
it was a Maurice Claret move.
Yeah, that's exactly. And dude, shout out to Trey, the football guy, going back to some Maurice Claret.
Well, that's what I compared it to.
I haven't heard.
That's what I compared it to. I remember writing a fantasy football post. Is like, I'm going to set myself on fire before I draft this guy. He's with the Jets. He's pulling a Maurice Claret. He's got no shot.
I think that's.
I have not heard the name Maurice Claret mentioned in a long time. I think the last time I might have heard Maurice Claret's name was the last time I said Bam.
That's exactly what he did, though.
Yeah, yes, he did. That's exactly what he did. All right, you know what? We're going to take a quick break. We're going to end up going over on this just a little bit, but I also want to talk about Honey Badger because Honey Badger had a nice little clap back on Le'Veon, and I definitely want to get into some baseball because I definitely want to get Trey's take not only on the state of the Pirates, but also I love getting Trey's take on the Yankees. And I definitely want to hear Josh's take as well, because I threw some fire at Bob Nutting over Twitter. Now, granted, Bob Nutting ain't going to see it because I'm just some dude. But I will say this, and this is what we call in the business a segue, or no, a tease. Bob Nutting should just sell the Pirates off to like Mark Cuban or somebody because he doesn't care about winning. But we're going to talk about all that and more when we come back on the Tanndemonium Sports Show here on Vendetta Sports Media Network with our special guests in the house, Trey Daubert, Josh Taylor. He's Jackson Law. We'll be right back. The following broadcast is brought to you in association by XP Coffee Company. XP Coffee Company is the fresh brewed coffee made for gamers by gamers. Get amazing flavors like Choco Loco in 8, 12, or 16-ounce bags, or level up and get Illusion, Isolation, Nightmare, or the Majestic Throne blends in light, medium, or dark roast in whole bean, coarse French press, drip, or fine espresso in 12-ounce, 16-ounce, or 2-pound bags. Wow! Shipping worldwide. If you're in the U.S., go to usa.xpcoffee.co. If you're in Europe or in the U.K., go to www.xpcoffee.co. XP Coffee Company, for gamers, by gamers. All right, we're back here on the Tanndemonium Sports Show here on Vendetta Sports Media Network. We're joined by special guest Josh Taylor of KDKA TV in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Was it still? They still call themselves Channel 2, right?
Still Channel 2.
Channel 2. All right. And we're live. Check us out live. We are live streaming here on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitch. Like, share, subscribe, pass us along because we're keeping going strong. So, Tyrann Mathieu had a little clapback.
What kind of pronunciation was that?
I don't know, man. I don't speak Creole. Okay.
Almost as bad as me with last names.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. But all right, so you know what? I'll just call him Honey Badger. How's that? Is that better? Can I just call him Honey Badger?
Yeah.
So his Honey Badger don't care, so you're good.
Not true.
He don't give a shit. No.
Hey, he's got his money all the way to the bank 5 times over before I'm even getting out of the car. So he clapped back and he said, quote, "These fellas will blame everybody for their lack of success," end quote. Now you want to talk about a guy who. And he's like, that's how I know I'm built different. Yo, that just lets you know this guy has no cares on the field or off the field. It's almost like he's like Trey Daubert, only bigger and meaner.
It should speak to two things. The first thing is what you just mentioned. The second thing is, if anyone has a right to talk about people who are just willing to do what it takes and do the things necessary, Tyrann Mathieu is that guy. Because remember how things were when he left LSU. Like the end of his time with LSU was not the best of terms as far as how that situation went. His off the field persona was completely different. The way people viewed him was different. He had to pretty much come in and make his own opportunity from scratch because his reputation was seriously damaged with some of the decisions he made at LSU. He comes in, he gets a shot at Arizona and plays well, and then ends up in Kansas City. And you saw what happened since he's been in Kansas City. This is a guy who had to pretty much rebuild his image from the ground up, walking in the door at the NFL. He wasn't like Le'Veon Bell, who did not really have any strikes against him coming in. Tyrann Mathieu had a lot more coming against him coming in the door, but built himself to the point where you didn't have to worry about whether or not his off-field issues would be a thing. You didn't have to question him. There's sometimes you have to remind people, hey, there was that stuff he had at LSU, because he has been such a model citizen since then and worked to build his reputation since then. So if anybody has that kind of clout to build that up, or that kind of license to do so, it's Tyrann Mathieu, because he had to work his way back to where he had to not only rebuild his own image, but also work to become the player that he is in the NFL. And his resume speaks for itself. So if he's the one saying it, you got to take that more seriously.
Which is a great point, because think of how little recognition defenders get right now. He was the Heisman finalist.
Yes.
There's no question he should have been the first round pick. No question. But that, off the field stuff is why he went in the third round. He's the one guy that's taken accountability for everything he's done. So it speaks volumes for him to say that.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
Jackson?
Oh no, I love Honey Badger. I knew his off the field stuff coming out of LSU, big into SEC football. So seeing him come to the NFL and seeing the way that he's turned around his life, the way that he has, and his attitude, it's a great story, and it shows that no matter how old you are, him still kind of being young, but no matter how old you are and what profession you're going into, you can still grab a hold of your life, your attitude, and change things around for the better. And man's got a Super Bowl ring now, so he's at the top of it.
And not to mention the fact that he is, without a doubt, in my mind at least, when I think of some of the top defensive backs in the league, his name is one of the first ones. Him and Minka are two of the main names that come up for me in a top 10. So this is the type of guy here now that, not even just with his off the field stuff, but his on the field resume, this is a guy that when he speaks, you need to listen, period.
I remember being very, very angry when Baltimore took Matt Elam. that same draft.
I remember just losing my mind on so many draft day. Like Josh, you should have saw it. I was in the company Slack freaking the hell out over the Steelers draft. I was like, where's your offensive lineman? Where is your what? Like I was like, I seriously was ready to quit the Steelers like twice in like a day.
See, I was unbelievably calm because I understood why they were going with this. I kind of got it. And this is one thing that going into drafts that people who don't sit in war rooms, including myself, because I don't get allowed in there, but people who don't sit in war rooms and haven't been involved in those conversations, I don't think we always grasp what teams are doing and what their actual, agendas are. And the truth of the matter, and this is something that I don't think we were really ready to accept at the time, was that the Steelers knew what they wanted to do as far as the offensive line. They knew the starter that they need wasn't on the outside. They knew it was in the middle. Right. And they also knew that they had to rebuild their running game. Right. But they couldn't just do it with anybody. And they found a way to not only find the guy in the middle that they needed in Kendrick Green, and they got the running back they probably needed to do it in Najee Harris. Because let's not kid ourselves. As much as we talked about what Le'Veon Bell did with the Steelers offense, Najee Harris is going to be expected to do the exact same thing because he's capable of doing this.
He's going to be running to the ground.
And as Mike Tomlin has famously stated before, he's going to ride him till the wheels fall off. He said that with Willie Parker years ago. He's probably going to do the same thing with Najee Harris. But here's the difference, though. If you're going to do it, you're going to do it with that guy, knowing that you have a couple of starters that are being shuffled around on your offensive line, knowing you have one guy who's going to be moved over, knowing that you have a second-year guy moving in to a starting slot on the left guard side who's already a pretty good run blocker. So all you really needed was a Kendrick Green in the middle, and it made sense at the time when they drafted Kendrick Green. Like, okay, wait, so they're looking for a center. They're not looking for a tackle because they had their belief in Chuks Okorafor on the left side and Zach Banner on the right side. Granted, Banner's coming off an Achilles injury, but he's expected to be healthy, so everything made sense. So when I saw how this was evolving, when they're saying, hey, they want to improve their run game, they want to do X, Y, and Z, They also needed depth in tight end, and so they took Freiermuth with the second
Yeah, I
round
thought that
pick.
was their most interesting pick by far.
I'm sitting there going, I can't be mad at those first two because you wanted to fix your running game. You got the best running back in the draft, who, by the way, is the career rushing leader at Alabama, which, what? Then the second thing, tied for the SEC record in career touchdowns with Tim Tebow. That's not slouch numbers. That's something you pay attention to. That catches your eye. So you get that guy first round. You get a tight end second round, whom we know can catch the ball pretty well, can be a red zone threat, and is at least a willing blocker, or at least more willing than Eric Ebron, which is saying something. So you get that guy in the second round with Freiermuth, and you're going, okay, I understand what people thought they needed to do, but they also fixed two other things in the meantime. So yeah, they might not have done it in the order we wanted them to,
but they got it done.
They checked off everything on the list as far as what their agenda was, and they did it pretty well.
And the one
I
thing
think we can argue about the value of the running back going in the first round, but there's no doubt that Najee Harris, he was the number 2 recruit in the country. He stepped out at Alabama as a true freshman and got carries right away. He was better than Josh Jacobs as a freshman right away.
Yes.
I just think the Freiermuth pick is the most interesting one because I know he's going to block, but I just don't know what his upside is. There was a lot of times at Penn State, he just looked a little like can't get out of his breaks, not super explosive. But then there's times like, whoa, how did he make that catch? He's big. He's a huge body. Can he be the Gronk? That's a high bar. We don't know if he can get
He
there.
hates being called baby Gronk.
He hates
And
being
I
called
love
that.
that. And that
Hates
was
that
actually
nickname.
going to be my next point. The fact that he does not want to be
He's the
compared
biggest
to Gronk.
boomer bust guy to me in that whole little draft for them.
If only because of the way they utilize tight ends. That might be the reason why. Because if I'm
Maybe
remembering
he's a
how
Heath
this
Miller though.
Yeah, but the thing is, and Brian, you know this, that the worst thing you can do is compare a tight end in Pittsburgh to Heath Miller.
That is
Because
the worst.
he's
You
like
might as
he's
well
like the
kill
gold
the man's
standard of
career.
Yeah,
You might as
he's
well
like the
kill
gold
his career
standard of
before
tight
it
end.
starts.
Yeah. Heath
Like,
Miller
every
is a
time
tight end.
he catches the ball, you're going to hear Heath, and it's like the dude's been retired for like.
I'm a Pennsylvania guy. I'm just not a Pittsburgh guy.
Yeah, that's
I'm
the
neither one of
gold
those
standard of tight ends in Pittsburgh is Heath Miller, and that's just what you don't do. I will say this though, if you can find a guy who can do the things that Eric Ebron was at least expected to do while doing some of the things Heath Miller was expected to do, I don't expect him to be one or the other, but if he can be a really decent mix of both, now I'm more intrigued. More importantly, because
if he could be Jesse James,
if he could be Jesse James with a better pass catching profile,
who caught the ball,
I'm okay with that. And he did catch the ball against New England. That was a touchdown. We're not going to have that debate now. But when you remember the kind of tight end Jesse James was, the thing that he could do was both things to a degree. Although I think Freiermuth is probably more of a weapon in the passing game, and I think that's what they're expecting him to be, especially in the red zone.
He can absolutely block.
Exactly. But here's the reason why I think he becomes more important. Because we just talked about an offensive line that's getting moved around. We talked about a running game that's trying to be rebuilt. And the thing that benefits the most from that, if you succeed with the first two things, is play action the third time. That's the third thing. So that's where Freiermuth does become a really important piece. So, yeah, it's a very intriguing pick. I thought that was an interesting one too. But given the value in the space and where they found him and knowing that they wouldn't find a guy that can do at least close to what they were expecting anywhere else, at least anywhere close where they were drafting, I think that was a pretty good move. I liked it.
It was Pitts, and then after him, it's like, well, Freiermuth's the only guy that's got a shot.
It was a huge drop-off between
Yeah.
Kyle Pitts and the rest of the tight end field. Absolutely.
All right, so let's move on into some of the news that's going on in the OTAs right now. Dak Prescott and Joe Burrow are looking to be on the right track as far as coming back off of some serious injuries. It's being said, and this is coming out of NFL.com, apparently Dak Prescott is looking like a dominant force down there in Dallas.
He's with the Jordan brand now.
He's signed with Jordan Brand.
Yeah. And
Hey, Jackson, by the way, Jackson, Dak Prescott, Joe Burrow, both SEC quarterbacks. Want to point that out.
Yeah.
I covered Arkansas for 3 years, so I can throw that in there.
Woo pick, baby. They're terrible, but woo pick.
I can't even argue with it. It's true.
Jackson is so
true.
huge an Arkansas fan. It's not even funny.
Hey,
It's
I like Coach Pittman though. I love Coach Pittman. I love the energy he brings.
He was the perfect guy to bring back for that job. And I was actually covering Arkansas. I worked in Fayetteville from 2012 to 2014. So I was there when he was the offensive line coach for a little bit. And I really liked Sam Pittman. So to see him come back and take that gig, I thought that was great for them. He'll do a lot to rebuild that program.
Yeah, that was like one of the best eras too, and that's when you had like the Frank Ragnows when they were coming through the program, and one of the like their offensive line was so big and so huge, like their overall weight was the largest weight of any offensive line in the country, even if you threw in the NFL offensive lineman. Yeah, Dan Skipper too. I love Dan.
And that's coming off of the Travis Swanson type years, because Travis Swanson always thought was a solid center. He ended up having a good shot at the NFL. But yeah, we could talk Arkansas offensive lineman all day, Jackson. We'll leave that for a different show. Yeah.
Oh, and of course, Ezekiel Elliott is getting some praise as well in the network that shall not be named. I mean, guys, there's been a lot of talk wondering about what the hell's going on with Zeke Elliott. What do you guys think? I want to start with Jackson, and then I want to do sort of a roundtable on your guys' thoughts on Zeke Elliott. Do you think Zeke Elliott is going to start trying to reclaim that mantle of looking to be a top dog? Because he's got a whole hell of a lot more competition now, especially with, the season Derrick Henry had, Najee Harris getting a lot of talk. Jackson, what do you think?
I think he's definitely one of the top 5 running backs in the league. It's going to be a question of his production kind of dipped last year because he had Andy Dalton as his quarterback. And when you don't, and it all kind of goes hand in hand, Dak has success because he has Zeke Elliott, and Elliott has success because he's got Dak. So now that Dak's back, hopefully that opens up opens up the run game a little bit more. Maybe he gets, some more space to run into. He's also great at catching the ball out of the backfield too. But I'd love to see him come back in full force. I don't have too much faith in the Cowboys as a whole, but for Zeke,
Trey,
you almost have to play the stock market with these running backs, right? My head always goes to like a fantasy perspective. Last year, I was just done with Zeke Elliott. It was like, I've had 3 good years in a row. Is he going to get better? Worked out. Got rid of Zeke Elliott in my auction league. It's just, at some point, these guys take dips. And he wasn't the same last year. And the odds of him being better, okay, yes, having Dak helps. But, are we going to see the Zeke Elliott that was first drafted out of Ohio State, and he was a little bit thinner, and he didn't have those carries under his belt? It's just, I don't know. Like these running backs dip. We've seen it. Yes, he's one of the best running backs in the NFL, but can you count on him being the guy that was, I don't know, a monster?
Let me kind of do a small offshoot off of your first question. Can you expect him to be the guy coming out of Ohio State? My offshoot to that question would be, can you expect the Cowboys offensive line to be as good as it was when Zeke started out with the Cowboys? Because that was a big part of that success. And I think a lot of people, especially in Dallas, really ignored the fact that, Dak had a pretty good beginning when he got that opportunity to start. And Zeke came out really being productive. But we ignored one of the main reasons why is because that offensive line might have been, if not the best in the league, top 5 in the league, and they weren't 5. That was a really good unit up front, making space for Zeke and giving Dak time. Now, the question comes back around to, now that Dak is healthy, you have expectations for Zeke once again. Can that offensive line be close to what it was before? Because if it's not going to be, I can't take it as seriously. Because, yes, I know Zeke is a talented running back, and I know for his ability to run and catch the ball and do a lot of different things, Zeke is up there as one of the best in the league. I'm never going to discount that. I'm never going to discount Dak being an athletic quarterback. I saw what Dak did in college with my own eyes and what he did to another SEC program. I saw him do that enough. I know what he's capable of. But I also like the fact that Dallas at least gave him an offense that allowed him to at least accentuate what he did best while also fitting in and dovetailing with what Zeke did best. So all of that actually worked together. Can it happen again this year? Maybe with a couple extra targets that they can work with. But I'm still coming back to, can this line give Zeke the space that he needs? Can they give Dak the time that he needs to work? Because let's not kid ourselves. The stock in the NFC East as a division dropped the day Dak got hurt. When Dak it all fell apart.
I want to add two quick things. They haven't taken care of Zeke at all. They've 350 carries, 330 carries, just over and over again. I'd love to see them get Tony Pollard more in the mix. And the second thing is there's a lot of underlying numbers, and I'm sure Courtney could find them somewhere. When Tyron Smith is healthy, their offense is unbelievable.
Absolutely. He's a key part in all of it. I totally agree. I agree.
But he hasn't been healthy.
Well, one thing that's
And
worrying
Travis Frederick's not there anymore either.
well,
Travis Frederick was the linchpin of the whole deal.
Yeah.
Made the
well,
whole thing
what's
work.
also worrying me about this Dallas offense, and this has been reported by Ian Rappaport, is that Amari Cooper's ankle injury is keeping him out of training camp. So is this going to be a long-term issue that goes into the shortened preseason, into this longer regular season, guys? Now it looks like they're gonna be okay on the defensive side of the ball because Micah Parsons has been practicing at all three linebacker spots. And the fact of the matter is, if he's not the starter in one of the linebacker positions in Dallas opening day, it's got to be because the guy's leg fell off. So my thing is this: is Amari Cooper's health gonna be now that linchpin of success? Or does Dak have enough weapons, and will that offensive line be good enough to give him time and give Zeke time? Or is this going to be an issue?
It's a combination of things, honestly. I think all those things have to work together because in order to have an efficient offense, you have to have some stability at the receiver position. You have to have some stability at the offensive line. And your quarterback has to be, at the very least, it doesn't have to be, world beater, but at the very least be efficient. If he can be efficient enough. And honestly, with a consistent enough line, with a solid enough line, a good enough running back, like a Zeke, a good enough pair or trio of wide receivers, Amari Cooper being among them, if you can get consistent work out of them and have those guys being healthy and available, then all Dak has to do is find the right guy to get the ball to and stay out of the way. Because when you have that situation, you know who you kind of become in essence as far as efficiency comes? You become Ryan Tannehill. That's what he was the past 2 years.
Ouch.
If Dak can be that's not a slight. I'm not saying that as a dig because Ryan Tannehill's been good the last 2 years for Tennessee. So if he can be that, but a more kind of amplified version, Dallas's offense looks 10 times better than it did the past couple seasons. That's really what I'm going with as far as Dak being an efficient guy. He didn't have to be a world beater because he's got world beaters around him if they can be consistent and healthy. If they can do that part, it makes him look a lot better in turn.
Yeah, but at the same token, and I'll close with this because there is one thing that I want to go to before we take the break. But for a guy that you're paying buku bucks to, you don't want a Trent Dilfer. You don't want a Ryan Tannehill. You don't want a game manager. You want
I'm not saying be Ryan Tannehill. I'm saying being efficient like Ryan Tannehill has been with a really good offensive line, a good running game, and reliable wide receivers. And also bear in mind, Tennessee won some games. So
yes, they did.
At this point, first of all, when you're paying a quarterback, the NFL is a quarterback league, and it's pigeonholed himself to become a quarterback league. But that's another discussion. So paying a quarterback, that's the cost of doing business these days. And if you have one with even a remote fraction of talent that Dak has, you're going to have to pay for it.
You're spending some money.
So that is one particular issue of it. But as far as the production goes, his production won't matter as much if all the other pieces are actually working because his numbers will eventually reflect what everybody else is doing because it's hard to be the best running offense and the best passing offense at the same time. But if you can have a rushing offense that complements your passing offense or vice versa, it makes it look a lot better on paper.
Absolutely. So, guys, what's going on with Todd Gurley and Richard Sherman? J.Dale Herbert here at Vendetta Sports Media wrote this article. Make sure you go to vendettasportsmedia.com, go to our NFL section and check it out. Definitely got to get some love to our Vendetta writers. That's for damn sure. But, so Todd Gurley and Richard Sherman, they still have not been signed. I don't even think their phones have been ringing off the hook, fellas. Trey, what's going on here now with Richard Sherman? Is it just because he's the old guy now? And Todd Gurley, is it just, hey, we know your knees are falling off?
I could be wrong about this, but I think Sherman actually came out and said he's still weighing offers. He hasn't decided yet, but I think he has offers in hand. So okay. I could be wrong about that. With Gurley, he should just retire.
And that's sad. That's really sad because this guy, he's still young. He's not even 30.
Well, he had degenerative knee issues even dating back to Georgia. They've known about this for a long time. For a long, long time. Last year, the guy got benched for Ito Smith, and he's not even on the Falcons roster anymore. Oof. I mean, what are we doing?
Ouch.
Oh,
you said
you reminded me of that. It hurts.
I thought you were getting ready to say Cheetos. I was starting to get hungry.
It's just a reality.
It's kind of like a tragic commentary on just how quickly things can fall apart. We talked about running backs and the usage earlier in the show. This is an example that's no different, especially in Todd Gurley's case. The truth of the matter is when you are a running back, your prime years are pretty much between 20 and 27, 28. You got to get the most you can out of those years, whether it's the last couple of years of college or those first few years in the NFL, because it just takes one or two things to go wrong, and God forbid they even snowball. But Todd Gurley's one of those. He could become one of those cautionary tales of you can have all the talent in the world, but you got to have some things go your way too.
He's another Kajana Carter, really, because I mean, look at how much hype Kajana.
That's tough.
Well, because here's the thing with Kajana.
Gurley had some really good years with the Rams.
Gurley was productive his first few years.
And Kajana Carter was like blowing it up in college. He came in, went into Cincinnati, got hurt, was never the same again.
Yeah, you're talking like first carry, first game preseason with Kajana Carter. That's really not the same deal. You talk about sold under a bad star. That's as bad as bad luck gets.
Yeah, Nick Chubb, he really got hurt in college, and he was not the same guy. And then when he came to Cleveland, it was like, oh, he's healthy now. And I love how they're taking care of him with they're giving touches to Kareem Hunt. They're not running him into the ground.
And Cleveland's done that pretty well. This is something I keep having to remind Pittsburgh fans of. They're like, oh, well, what does team do in the division? I'm like, you forget Cleveland has added talent, and they've added
they're nasty.
Yeah,
they've added some serious
Cleveland
talent,
is
especially
good now. And now that team has some swagger.
Good's an understatement.
They came in here 2 weeks in a row and slapped the hell.
They might have a top 5 roster.
Their roster's up there as far as good rosters. And Brian added the comment about swagger. Look no further than the quarterback for that, because he's brought a lot of it. I said this the day they drafted him. I said at the very least, even if he's not even a top 10 quarterback, every moment that he's standing on grass with that uniform on, that team will believe they can beat anybody they're facing, because that's how he's built. Baker Mayfield is wired that way. He is a competitor and does not flinch. As long as he's a member of Cleveland's organization and he's on that field, they're going to believe they can win any game that they play in, because that's how he's built. And you need a guy like that. You need that kind of attitude to turn that kind of organization around. And he's done that for a significant degree.
I can say this one last thing before we go to our break, and then we're going to pivot into Major League Baseball. Baker Mayfield is the type of – he's got the mind – his mindset is what you want in your leader. You want that guy that's cocky. You want that guy that's brash. You want that guy that's going to get into the face of the baddest guy on the other side of the ball and say, is that all you got?
You know who does that a lot? The guy that they call the GOAT. He's done that a few times.
Yeah.
Just saying.
As much as I don't like the man, I've seen him get in the face of James Harrison when I wouldn't even get in the face of James Harrison. Matter of fact, I called out, I was a keyboard warrior one time in my life, and that was when James Harrison was getting into it with Mark Madden. Mark Madden is someone who he's a guy that I don't really like. I don't really respect. But he called James Harrison out once, and it was actually on point. Like, he wasn't wrong in his call out. And James Harrison got bitter grapes on it. And he called Mark Madden out. And I said, oh, you want to be bad calling out a guy that you could kill with no problem? I'll at least think. Meanwhile, I'm like almost 400 pounds myself. It's like, this guy killed me. I better hope he don't take me up on this.
I stood in that man's presence, and I'm like, no, I'm good.
Yeah, you know what?
I'm all right.
There's 4 men in this world that I would not want to mess with. Greg Lloyd on a bad day, James Harrison, and I'm putting all 3 of these guys into one, are the UFC middleweight, lightweight, and world heavyweight champions, and my mother, because my mother could kill everybody. But the fact that I'm putting James Harrison in there, and the fact that Tom Brady really got in his face and said, that's it, that's the best you can do, and laughed. That's who you want. We'll be back for our final segment here on the Tanndemonium Sports Show here on Vendetta Sports Media. We're going to talk some Major League Baseball. We're going to squeeze some NBA in there, and if we go over, hell, the boss of the network is on there, so if you got an issue, talk to him. Talk to him. I'm Brian Tann. He's Jackson Law. He's Trey Daubert. Special guest Josh Taylor of KDKA here in Pittsburgh. We'll be right back for our final segment here on the Tanndemonium Sports Show here on Vendetta Sports Media Networks. We'll be back.
The following is brought to you in partnership by Symbol.
Symbol is a new sports marketplace where you can trade shares of professional teams like stocks. You love sports. You interested in fantasy sports without the weekly annoyance of fantasy league upkeep? Then Symbol's the app for you. With Symbol, fantasy sports is going to a whole other level. How it works is simple. You buy Symbol shares for your favorite sim teams on the app. When your sim team wins, you get automatic cash deposits, and you don't lose any money when they lose. That's it. So if you follow trends across football, basketball, and baseball, and you think your team is a sleeper, simply invest in your favorite sim teams on Symbol and watch your virtual portfolio prove you right or wrong. And if you want to get in on the action right away, Vendetta Sports Media's got you covered. Go to symbol.app/Vendetta and use our exclusive promo code Vendetta, and you'll get a $10 bonus when making your first deposit. Symbol, taking fantasy sports to a whole other level. Hey, you. Yeah, you. In case you hadn't heard, your favorite Renegade Sports Media Group has its own Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Vendetta Sports Media to support our efforts to continuously bring you sports, gaming, and other media coverage as only we can. We've got 4 different membership tiers. For $3 a month, we'll give you a simple thank you on our Patreon site. For $6 a month, you get a thank you, and you get to become a recruit in Jackson Law's Vendetta University Gaming Series. For $10 a month, you get everything from the previous tiers, a special thank you at the end of our videos, free access to our upcoming Discord chat, and a free koozie after 4 months. And then the big dog, $50 a month, gets you everything from the previous tiers, as well as opportunities for Fantasy League invites, stream gaming, possible invites to mock NFL and NBA draft sessions, a once-a-month Google Hangout, and after 4 months, a free t-shirt. Yeah! Go to patreon.com/Vendetta Sports Media and help us to improve our pledge to bring you the best sports, gaming, and other media coverage. We're back on the Tanndemonium Sports Show here on Vendetta Sports Media Networks. Make sure you do what the disembodied voice of Brian Tan told you to do. Make sure you go to our Patreon, patreon.com/Vendetta Sports Media. And you know what? Chime right in, because it allows us, when you join these tiers and you get in, you have a hand in building what we're doing here. We can get guests like Josh Taylor on the show. We can keep coming to you guys live. Hell, we'll be able to even start going to stuff on location. But it takes revenue. We're getting it, but if you jump in, you can help us get it even further. And make sure you definitely go to symbol.app. Now, of course, my Sim Jets were sort of crapped on in one of the latest Symbol as being what was it? What was the wording that was used? It's overvalued. It's not a good value, but I'm stuck in it at this point, with my one share. So I guess that they're going to have to do something this year to make themselves useful, because I'm already sucky on Robinhood. I don't want to be sucky on Symbol too. But we're going to have to get to some NBA, because it was either Jackson Law or Jackson Law doppelganger was hanging out in Phoenix over the weekend and was laying a whooping on some Denver Nuggets fans. One guy that's walking around with some tinfoil Dominic Toretto bling on with a Mo Howard haircut, catching some hands, while Jefferson Legal is like looking at his boy, say, "Yeah, I'm whooping on your boy." Whap, 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 whap. Looking like Doug the Thug Black and Goon.
How do you lose when you got the high ground? Like, how do you do that?
I know Obi-Wan Kenobi's like, dog. Really?
I don't know what was worse, the fact that dude won the fight not having the high ground, but after he whooped this guy in front of his friend who barely helped him, then he says after that, Suns in 4.
Yeah,
And the Suns won in 4.
And it happened.
Yeah,
It
I don't know if you
What?
guys saw this, but Devin Booker tweeted out a photo of that guy, and he just said, "Need man's info." He's gonna try and get that man a seat at a Western Conference Finals game.
I did see that, and I'm like, that dude's on top of the world right now, because
absolutely,
that's one of the craziest things I've ever seen.
Wins a
That's
fight,
amazing.
Team wins in a sweep, and then is gonna get tickets from Devin Booker
and calls the sweep, calls a shot for the sweep and gets it. Wow.
Now, if something like that would have happened in Miss Jackson's class, way back when. Either me or Josh would have had the other guy's back. But his boy just like that was almost like a Robin Hood Men in Tights moment. Watch my back. Your back just got hit.
Got punched twice.
Man. And then you tried to sneak him to boot. You tried to sneak him. I mean, you know what? I'm not gonna mention the former Vendetta employee's name, but that was some old DH crap right there, man. That's almost as bad as betting somebody, losing spectacularly in said bet, and then refusing to pay the bet. I'm just saying. But I said we were going to some MLB. Let me be a good host and do a little bit of MLB, because Trey called me out last week, Josh. He was like, what the hell happened to us talking baseball? I was supposed to come on once a month and talk baseball. I've been on here talking hockey more than I've talked baseball. And I was like, holy crap, you're right.
Because he's hockey guy Trey now.
Yeah,
I'm on back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, well, because you're hockey guy Trey. That's why we ain't been. And plus, baseball. You know what? It's less my indictment of baseball as a game, and more my indictment on Rob Manfred and the marketing department of MLB. Why the hell do we not know people? Why the hell is it the MLB? This is supposed to be America's pastime. While this game might, and folks say, oh, it's so boring, you're standing around. No, baseball is active as hell chess. There are so many different scenarios that you have to run through in baseball. And if you do it wrong, you lose. You have to do baseball right. Baseball is one of those games where if football, everything has to come together, like Josh said, baseball is like that even more so. So the fact that baseball is largely ignored anymore, the fact that MLS is getting more popular than MLB. I'm not saying that football, so that Gavin doesn't feel slighted. Not saying that football isn't a great sport. It is. But the fact, and yes, there is nothing like the Stanley Cup playoffs. Absolutely nothing, especially when you get to the Final Four. But baseball in spring and summer are supposed to go hand in hand like lovers at the potato patch.
Can I take a shot at this one as to why it's not going the way it probably should? Probably because baseball in and of itself doesn't know what it wants to be. And this is the problem that both baseball and, believe it or not, hockey both have as far as hockey's playoffs and how it works. Because I will agree, the Stanley Cup playoffs, there's nothing like it, especially when you get to that final round. However, playoff hockey and baseball have the same problem. They don't know what they want to be. Because you guys have probably seen the promos. MLB has these promos, especially on MLB Network. You'll see these promos with all these videos of all these high energy moments, bat flips and guys celebrating and all this crazy stuff happening on the field. And they'll tell you at the bottom, make it major. But then people within the game, whether it be managers, I'm not going to say his name. Actually, I will. Tony La Russa, I'm talking about you. I'm talking about him because I am. But whether it be managers, whether it be former players, whether it be broadcasters, some of them here in Pittsburgh, they get to this whole, well, you're supposed to do it this way, and it's supposed to be about this. You can't show people up. Major League Baseball. Do you want to be high energy, high drama, and high celebration and get people into it with excitement? Or do you want players to be robots? Decide first, then go play. Because if you decided first that, hey, we want to make this more high energy, we want to make this more high drama, we want the Jose Bautistas and the Fernando Tatis Jr.'s of the world to show people how fun and exciting this game can be, or even the Tim Andersons of the world. We want to show them how fun and exciting this game can be. Let them do that. Don't have it be one thing over here and then all of a sudden come down with some fake hammer on the other side. You either want it to have emotion and drama, or you want it to be like out of the park baseball where it's just simulated and there's no real emotion. You can't have it both ways. Same thing with playoff hockey. You either want people to watch because your stars are there being marketed and doing what they do, or you want to have them clutched and grabbed and cross-checked in the head and knocked in the face all the time with no penalties called and no real enforcement for it, no real kind of circumstance or consequence for it. You either want it one way or you want it another way, but you can't have it both ways. That's the problem. And yes, they came up with the dumbest catchphrase like chicks dig the long ball. But you know what? Home runs get you runs and runs win you games. Offense wins you games. Offense isn't entertaining. You know what's not entertaining? When someone hits a home run in the big moment and just doesn't react to it. No, make this actually what it should be. Bring the excitement there, because what's been one of the biggest complaints about baseball is that it's
too
boring.
long.
The games are 3-4 hours long. Why? Because it's been advertised to death. That's one reason why. That's why it takes a lot longer. But on top of that, it's because it has no clock. So what do you do with something that has no clock and you don't know what's going to end? Make it more interesting so people don't realize it's taking that long.
Yeah.
They can't seem to figure that part out right.
And Trey,
figure out what you are first.
Right. And Trey, you've worked in baseball. So this is something that you can definitely talk to.
I mean, I feel like I've named 1,000 reasons in the past, whether it be, oh, we don't know who these guys are in the minor leagues for 6 years when they first get drafted. Like, you're not going to get Kyler Murray. Sorry. Like, he's going to go play football. It just is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. They definitely didn't get Russell Wilson.
Whether it be the commissioner doesn't market his players right. There's no reason why Nick Young should have twice the amount of followers on Instagram that Mike Trout does. That's it. That's a man for problem. Whether it be pregame, why don't they get mic guys up? Why don't they ever mic guys up?
Some local stations do, but not all of them do. That's part of the problem.
It's very, very, very rare.
Some markets are forward thinking and some aren't. And it's just, you figure that should be more of a universal thing or more of a global thing.
I do like what I've noticed is that they'll have like the game of the day or the game of the week or something, and it's live on YouTube, and they make it interactive because people in the comment section can ask questions, and they'll talk to coaches and managers and even players throughout the game. And then they'll ask those questions, like the announcers will ask those questions to whoever is being interviewed. And they got interviews like every couple of innings. So I've liked that. I've actually sat down and gotten to watch some baseball that way. And I've liked it a lot better because it's not your traditional, just like three dudes chatting it up, having a conversation about something that's not baseball while watching a baseball game. This is at least interactive and interesting in a way because they can get some funny questions or just like some good questions.
You know, can we just clone Bob Uecker? Can we just clone Bob Uecker and just have him on every broadcast team?
I'll raise that. I'll see your Bob Uecker and raise you a Vince Scully. I want both.
Done.
Give me one of each.
Yes.
But to Jackson's point, Jackson put a pretty good point. It's different from what we've seen before. And what's one of the biggest arguments that people make about anything that's doing baseball? Well, that's not how we do it. This is how it's been done for years. And the worst reason to keep doing anything is to keep saying that's how we've always done it. Right. That's the worst reason to keep doing something. Because let's be honest, if a lot of people said that's the way we've been doing things would be a lot different right now. We might not be sitting having this conversation.
No, we would not.
We wouldn't. So that's the dumbest reason. And there's a laundry list of things that really need to be changed, but they keep using that argument. Well, that's the way it's always been. That doesn't mean it's the way to go now. It's 2021. It's not 1894. Some things don't need to stay the same. Some things in 2021 didn't need to be the way they were in 2005. But here we go, still stuck in some time warp where MLB can't get out of its own way.
It's a weird time warp, too, because here's the thing. Bat flipping, I'm all for bat flipping, and if the pitcher gets pissed off because homeboy flips the bat, if Vlad Guerrero Jr. flips the bat when he hits a home run, guess what? Maybe you should have thrown, instead of throwing a hanging curve that hung over the front of the plate that he crushed, maybe you should have thrown inside at 95 miles an hour that he couldn't catch up to. Or maybe you threw your best pitch and he's just better than you. Here's an idea. Take that pissed off passion and take it to him in the next one. And if you feel that you need to plunk somebody to get your point across, go ahead and do it and let him come up and knock your ball out the park again. Quit with this unwritten rules crap.
It'd be like if a quarterback got sacked and he just threw the ball at the defender.
There you go. There you go. I mean, hey, if Paul Wrecking Crew can hit someone with a football to prove a point, then you know what? Then Verlander should be able to pop a guy for what I mean. Honestly,
could you imagine in golf when they do those duos or whatever? A guy sinks a shot and they're like, "Screw this,"
and he just runs out.
Whacks him with the club.
He just runs onto the hole. Doesn't let him pull his ball out to make it official. He just starts pissing in the cup, just like, yeah, this is what I think of your par, pal.
For me, it's just it's just one of those things where, and Brian brings up a good point. I find it really weird that we will have pitchers throw at hitters the next time they're up because the hitter did something in terms of competition. And it was a high emotional moment, and your competitive spirit gets the best of you at that point, and that other person excelled more than you did. And your lone reaction is, I, as a competitor, just got beaten by someone else who's competing against me, and now I'm mad at that person. Jimmy Johnson, I thought, said it the best when he coached University of Miami. You don't want us to dance, don't let us score. Period. Yeah. And I'll say this also. If you don't want batters bat flipping and doing stuff like that in high energy moments, then don't have pitchers on the mound stomping around and pumping their fists and yelling and doing all kinds of goofy ass dances when they strike people out because it's along the same lines. Don't have all these closers that come in all quirky with these weird routines when they come in on the mound that become huge, big cult figures and celebrating after games. Thank you. If you don't want the one thing, then you can't have the other thing. You can't have it both ways. But for some odd reason, that's what baseball wants. They want it both ways. I keep hearing this stupid argument about why pitchers keep hitting in the National League. Oh, well, because it's the strategy because of the double shift. Let me get this straight. The strategy for keeping something that allows starting pitchers to hit is a tactic you use late in games that keeps relief pitchers from hitting. That makes no sense.
It's the only sport that exists that the rules aren't unified.
Thank you. It's the only pro sport where all 30 teams are not playing the same game.
No. And it's
How
weird.
is that possible? Could you imagine European soccer if let's say Man City's playing one way or Manchester United's playing one way?
Premier League, there's 13 guys on the field or like something stupid.
Could you imagine? Like it makes no sense.
Which is why I keep saying the number one rule that needs to be changed right now is the DH needs to be in both leagues.
Either have the DH in both leagues or
don't
no
have
DH
it in both
at all.
But
they're starting to put DH in Little League now.
Well, to your point, Jackson, every single level of amateur baseball below the majors has the DH in high school. I know this because I was the DH for my high school team. They have it in college baseball. On a lot of teams, there are some pitchers that can hit in college baseball. This is true. But a lot of those teams, the pitcher will pitch the day he's pitching, and the days he's not pitching, he might DH, which is why I love Shohei Ohtani so much, because he's doing what a lot of college baseball pitchers have been doing for years. But here's another thing that I think is crazy, because you will have travel teams where they have a DH, high school teams where they have a DH, college teams where they have a DH. And if you get drafted into the right minor league organization, you might play with the DH for your entire career. But let's say you get traded to a National League team and all of a sudden, all right, kid, go hit. What?
I remember the 2018 World Series.
Have worked against it.
The 2018 World Series, Nate Eovaldi, it was that extra inning game where he pitched his lights off. They literally told him, can't have you swing the bat. He had Tommy John surgery twice. Can't let you get hurt.
Yeah.
This is a guy who's hitting like 3 times in a World Series game, and the pitcher can't swing.
And somebody will tell you that's strategy. No, that's not strategy. It's your work being done for you. That's not the same thing. What are we doing here? So you can have a guy who spends his entire life with a system that works against what MLB is doing. And if he gets drafted by the wrong team in the wrong league, he might have to do something that he might not have to do his entire lifetime, or at least not sparingly because he had somebody hitting for him. It makes no sense.
And Eduardo Rodriguez has to hit today. He's 0 for 27 in his career.
Good luck with that.
And of course, the Pirates just dropped like another one. So they're like 0 for the century or so, on their way to another 100-game losing season. And you're wasting probably one of the best baseball minds in the front office in Ben Cherington on what? I mean, not all right, fine. Maybe, well,
are you
for here
or is he trying to fix it?
Well, for here in Pittsburgh, because look at what we've had. I mean, maybe not wasting, but the bottom line is Ben Cherington can do the best that he can possibly do. Bob Nutting isn't going to put no hustle behind that muscle. He's not putting no money behind anything. So all it's going to be is wasting the guy's time. And I'm sorry, Derek Sheldon, he's like anyone that comes into this city for MLB, they're wasting their time.
Brian, let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
Did the Steelers win Super Bowls in the 70s because Art Rooney was their owner, or because Dan Rooney was the GM and Chuck Noll was the head coach?
I'll go with GM and head coach for 1,000.
Okay. Did the Penguins win their second Stanley Cup in 1992, going back-to-back because Howard Baldwin bought the team in October of 91, or was it because they had some really good guy named Lemieux and Stevens and Tocchet and Yager and those guys? and Craig Patrick, who's probably one of the best hockey minds that ever lived.
I will say it's because they had Ulf and Shell Samuelson. Thank you.
Well, there's that too, added to that bonus. So now you see where I'm going with this. Were the Dodgers even remotely competitive in the early 2000s because Frank McCourt was their owner, or because they had GMs like Paul DePodesta, Ned Coletti, and eventually Andrew Friedman after another group took over? You see where I'm going with this? Owners do not have that much of an actual impact what happens. You have to have a smart person operating your franchise, because I can make the case for as many great owners as there were, but let's be honest here. Not every Pirates owner can be Barney Dreyfuss. They can't, because he was the owner and the GM, and they had a lot of success with Barney Dreyfuss as their owner because he was also a general manager. But let's not kid ourselves. The success they had in the 60s and 70s, was that more or less because of who owned the team, or was it because of Joel Brown being their GM? Because Joel Brown left, Harding Peterson showed up, they had one title after that. And then you had this big gap in between, and nothing's happened since. So was it Joel Brown being a smart baseball guy? Or was it the ownership of the Galbraith family, who eventually had to sell the team to a conglomerate of businesses and partially the city of Pittsburgh? And in that situation, they still won 3 division championships. Or was it the team that Sid Thrift built? We talk about all this stuff as like owners this, owners that. Most owners don't have that much of an impact. Now, they do hire the guys who make the decisions. That's a different story. If you want to have that talk, I can tell you about how Jerry Jones, for some odd reason, can't seem to figure it out. The man's won a handful of Super Bowls, but it ain't because of him as the owner. It's because he managed to hire a guy who, by the way, was his own college teammate, Jimmy Johnson, who took over everything, pulled off one of the greatest trades as far as a player for a bunch of picks in league history, won a couple of Super Bowls, and then he fired that dude and replaced him with another one of his old friends, and Barry Switzer won another Super Bowl. Owners don't always know what they're doing. Sometimes they just have to hire the right guy who knows what he's doing.
I do want to counter that a little bit, because I'm a Red Sox fan, and before John Henry bought the team, they were a joke.
Yes. Now that's a good example.
A pure joke. And he's the same guy that runs Liverpool. And before he bought Liverpool, they were also a joke. Bought Liverpool, they're really good. The Red Sox are really good. And every single guy he hires, it's like, okay, Dombrowski, clear plan here. We have young guys. I know he's going to trade them. We got to win now. He brings in Hein Bloom. Okay, we traded those guys. We got to rebuild the farm system. And he's making all these smart trades, and they're back in the mix. So I do think owners have
the 2 best guys in that equation, though. You ignored Theo Epstein. And you ignored Vince Harrington.
But he hired all those guys.
And to a degree, Jet Hoyer. Now, you have a point. Now, hiring Theo Epstein is fine. But I'll counter it with this. Who turned down the job for him to hire Theo Epstein? He wanted to hire Billy Beane, and Billy Beane said no. So just imagine if he hires Billy Beane and it doesn't happen. That almost didn't go down.
Billy Beane may have succeeded.
He may have, but he hasn't yet in Oakland, and I'm a Billy Beane guy. But, as much as we say him hiring Theo Epstein was a great thing, it almost didn't happen. But
and then we have the Yankee situation right now, too.
For every John Henry, you can throw just pretty much any other owner in there, and there are 4 or 5 that go against that point.
The difference between George Steinbrenner and Hal Steinbrenner.
That's what and honestly, George Steinbrenner had so many smart GMs that they protected that man from himself. You can argue that Gene Michael and Brian Cashman protected that man from himself. I have to remind people, George Steinbrenner didn't even want Mariano Rivera. He wanted to trade him. He wanted to get rid of him.
He was the loose cannon. There's no doubt about that.
There were guys he didn't want to keep. He didn't want to keep Bernie Williams, and those were 2 guys that were a core of that team's dynasty. So
but he was always aggressive.
He was always aggressive, but aggressive doesn't always win you things.
This team ain't aggressive.
For every John Henry, there's 9 or 10 owners who have no idea what the hell they're doing. There might be 29 to 30. That's the difference. John Henry's the exception. He is not the rule.
Well, see, my only point that when it comes to Bob Nutting is the fact that you look at a Pirates team where he's raking in a ton of cash,
as is every other MLB
season.
owner.
Yeah,
but he never opens up the wallet to get people in here.
One more question, Brian. Mm-hmm. Who had the more successful ownership tenure, Bob Nutting or Kevin McClatchy?
Oh, I got to give it to Bob Nutting. I have to give it to Bob Nutting.
We keep trying. It's not that I disagree with the premise of him being a bad owner. It's we're making bad arguments.
Fair enough.
That's where it is. Now, if you told me the hiring of Frank Coonley and New Huntington is a dark mark against him, I'll listen to that argument. But at the same time, I'll counter with the fact that New Huntington got the Pirates to the postseason 3 times. Kevin McClatchy didn't get there once with Ken Bonifay or Dave Littlefield.
That's true.
So we can say what we want to, but there's some arguments that you can poke holes in that. And it once again, I'm not defending Bob Nutting. I need to make that clear. I'm challenging the premise that we try to make assumptions with bad faith arguments. And there have been some things that we might not think are successful by some measure, but they're still better than they were. Because people say, 20 years of this. Yeah, you're right. But there were 3 years of winning after 20 years of losing. So
That's true.
You have to remember, because we keep trying to jam this square peg into this round hole. I keep telling people, for the most part, owners don't have that much of an impact. They are there to smile in front of a camera when the time comes, lift the trophy if it's handed to them when they win a championship, and sign the checks. That's about it. But if they hire the wrong guys, by all means, kill them. If Travis Williams and Ben Cherington don't work out, which I have every reason to believe Ben Cherington could, just because of what he did in Boston underneath Theo Epstein and how they were able to continue to win a championship, tear it down, build it back up, win again, tear it down, build it back up, win again. If he can do that once here, he's accomplished his goal. In which case, ain't much we can say about Bob Nutting. But if we're talking about relative to the history of the ownership of this franchise over the last 40 years, what are we complaining about? It might not be that bad by comparison. Now, the on-field product, if you want to kill that, go for it. Kill Cam Bonifay, kill Dave Littlefield, kill Neil Huntington, and in some cases, kill Ben Cherington. Because that's their job, is to create the on-field product to make it better. The owner's job is to sit in the box and collect the check and write a few every once in a while. I can't blame that dude.
I mean, my whole thing is this, and wow, I did not expect to get schooled, but I got, and you know what? And the one thing I'll say is this: unlike some folks, I will happily admit without ego when I've been schooled. I just got schooled by a guy who does this for a living. So,
and you know, it's all love. You know, I love you. It's been 20 plus years.
I know.
Just, but you're
right.
and you're not the only person. And honestly, Bryan, I can't blame you, because there are people that do what I do that say the same stuff that you say, and they should know better, because there are people that do what I do that just make a whole bunch of bad faith arguments and aren't willing to acknowledge when something is staring you in the face and you want to just admit otherwise. So I can't say it's entirely your fault. I can't say it's the fan base's fault, because sometimes you just eat what you're fed. And you've been fed a lot of bad stuff by some people over the years. Some have agendas, some do not. Yeah. Me, I got nothing to lose with this thing. I mean, I'm already a part-time guy on a couple of different stations. It makes no difference to me. I don't expect to be doing this when I'm 60. You know what I mean? But at the same time, we tend to.
This might be called the Taylormonium job after this.
Now, I say this as a guy who was born and raised in Pittsburgh, just like you, Bryan. I love my city. I love where I'm from. And I love the passion that my city brings. But at the same time, you can't always have it the way you want it. Sports is cyclical. It comes and goes. There are peaks and valleys. There are times when you will be great. There are times when you will not be great. You just need to take it as it comes. If you have been born in a certain time period in our city, Bryan, you've seen Super Bowls, you've seen World Series, you've seen Stanley Cups, you've seen national championships for Pitt and Penn State football. You've even seen my alma mater, Duquesne University, make the NCAA tournament, which I have not seen in my lifetime. You've seen all those things happen.
I've seen it. You and I both have. I've got a couple of years on you. We've both seen it.
I have not seen Duquesne make the tournament in my lifetime.
No,
I'm still kind of sad about that. But that's
well, I've got that
someday.
one on you. I've got that one on you at least.
You do.
But the one thing I will say is this: when it comes to Bob Nutting, and then we're going to move on to the NBA, because we're way over, and I do want to get some of that talk in a little bit of NHL if we can, guys. But the one thing I will say is this: is when you've got a team that is doing this poorly, except for the 3 years where they were in the playoffs, at some point, as the guy whose name is on that ownership, you've got to start looking at seeing, well, what can I do differently? Now, granted, bringing in Ben Cherington could be a good start. Is the start.
It has
and maybe
to be.
That, and it
you
has
have to start somewhere, because the thing is, we saw the product the past couple of years, 2016 through 2019. We saw what the product was. So he brought in a new president and he brought in a new GM. And honestly, it's too early in the process to say it's not working, because when you had that bad of a drop-off, you can't come in one offseason and fix it around like that. I don't know many sports where you can do that. Not to mention the
very
fact,
important draft pick coming up.
And there's a very important number 1 overall draft pick coming up. But here's the thing. You had to be bad in order to get the number 1 draft pick.
That's true.
And I subscribe to the Bill Simmons theory. And there aren't many that I've subscribed to, but there's this one. The worst thing you could be is a team in the middle.
The Phillies.
Exactly. If you're a team on top, you're contending every year. You're trying to do whatever it takes. If you're a team in the bottom, you got high draft picks. You can try to bring in an influx of talent to change things around. If you were in the middle, what are you? You can't get the draft
San Diego
picks.
Padres in the early 2010s.
Right. You can't get the draft picks that make your talent pool better, at least faster, and you're not going to be able to contend. Just don't be a team in the middle. And you become the Phillies, who spent, as they called it, stupid money to be in the middle.
Right.
You make that to make sense to me, please.
I can't.
But Bob Nutting's the bad owner, though.
It happened in Philadelphia. It's supposed to always be sunny there, but it just don't make no sense. Sheets over Wawa. All right, so
I can't get that discussion.
So we're in the final 4 of both NHL and NBA. The Lightning are behind 1-0 to the Islanders. Hockey guy Trey, what the hell, man?
Yeah. The Islanders.
I do not want to see that. Now, I want to see the Islanders get thumped, but I also want to see them go to the Stanley Cup and have the Flower destroy them.
Barry Trotz has to have some magic hobbit powers going on there, because I really don't think they're that talented. like every time you put on a game, and I don't want to use like the broadcasters as an example, but it's Pierre Maguire, like, oh, this fourth line is like, that's where you're going with the start of your broadcast? Like you're bragging up the fourth line?
Oh, God.
I really don't think they're that good, but Trotz he's got a hell of a system going on in place. They really don't give up goals. And that Matt Barzal guy is the one guy who's out there, and he's not really like anybody else in the league. I don't know anybody that really skates like him. Some of his edge work is unbelievable, and when he's hot, he's scary.
I got to agree with Trey. There's something that Barry Trotz is doing that no one else has seemed to figure out. And here's the part where I get a little bit of joy derived from this postseason, because I didn't think they'd get past Pittsburgh. I thought the Penguins would beat them in 6 games. I was wrong. I thought that Boston would beat them. I was wrong. But Barry Trotz right now is kind of putting me in giggle mode, because you know who else got knocked out in the first round besides the Penguins? The Washington Capitals.
Yep.
The team that Barry Trotz took to and won a Stanley Cup with. And then they told him pretty much, yeah, we don't need you anymore. And they let him walk. And now he's got the Islanders for the second year in a row in the conference finals, and the Capitals aren't there. And I'm sitting there wondering, maybe Barry Trotz knew something that Washington proper didn't. Because now, just imagine if he knocks off Tampa. Tampa's supposed to be the Eastern Conference team that no one's supposed to be able to beat on paper. If he knocks off Tampa, how much better does that make Barry Trotz look when he's put together a system that we can't argue against? They've all bought into. Barzal has bought into it. Jean-Gabriel Pageau, they got him out of Ottawa, first of all, which is a miracle. Then they got him to an offense get him into a system where he can actually thrive and do well. He's bought into what Barry Trotz is doing. I got to give him all the credit.
This isn't just this isn't just a good Lightning team. They had to like manipulate the system to even keep their players.
Yes. Oh, the Kucherov situation. I love the sour grapes coming out of Carolina after that series was over. Like, yeah, we lost our team that was $19 million over the cap. It's like, yeah, kind of true though. But just imagine if Barry Trotz and the Islanders were able to knock that team with all the circumstances that Trey just laid out. Imagine if they take that team out. How much better does it look for Barry Trotz?
Dude, Barry Trotz looks. Barry Trotz, we're calling him Mr. Hobbit on this show next season. That's for sure.
He's right check right now.
Well, because Josh, the one thing is that now you remember in high school, I was huge sports guy. I watched everything sports related. I missed out on doing homework because I was watching games. Well, I've fallen off of that. So I've committed for this show in this next round. It's going to start with the NFL and with college football. I'm going to get really back into becoming like a super student again. So I will probably have to call Barry Trotz Mr. Hobbit next year, or Coach Hobbit.
As an even trade, you were the guy who got me a lot of my WCW knowledge in high school, because I was a WWF guy.
Yeah.
So as far as my WCW knowledge and the NWO taking over, I lived through you for that. You were the guy that got me. You're the guy that gave me the tapes. I got my WCW education from you. So this is me giving back right now.
Well, I appreciate
that's how
that.
I feel, at least.
I appreciate that very much. Golden Knights up 1-0 on Montreal, the Habs. I seriously, honestly, I don't see the Canadians being able to muster up the juice to beat the Golden Knights. I just don't. As casual of a fan as I am, I know 3 things. Water's wet, you don't tug on Superman's cape, and you're not beating the Golden Knights.
Should Montreal even be there, though?
I actually picked them.
Really?
Yeah, Trey picked them.
Not to beat Vegas, but to advance to the semi.
To advance.
Wow. Oh, okay.
He was there. He was. They were his dark horse pick.
They're choke artists.
Honestly, as much as you hear like the Leafs, that ballad played over and over again, you're like, there's no way they could do it with this team. This team's too loaded, and Austin Matthews and
until they win, I will not pick them.
Yeah. Just ask the big Leafs fan that's at Vendetta, Scott. They become the Arizona of the NHL, so I can't argue with that. But I thought this Leafs team was different, especially with John Tavares. He gets knocked out early. That messes this whole thing up. But they had a 3-1 lead. I'm like, they could finish this thing off. But they in true Leafs fashion did what they did. So I'm wondering if Montreal should be there or if they were just the beneficiary of the Leafs being the Leafs.
Oh, they should not be there. They should not be there. But the Leafs are chokers.
And they're learning it now.
Yeah. They were the fortunate beneficiaries of the Leafs being the Leafs.
And I was told 10 minutes ago that time was up. So let's go into some NBA so we can finish out strong. For one, now is the Phoenix Suns sweep of the Denver Nuggets, guys, does this help or hurt them? Because every other series is tied 2-2. So is this extended rest going to hurt this Phoenix Suns team?
Totally helps them. You get a healthy Chris Paul.
Any day that Chris Paul, yeah, there you go.
Go for it, Trey. You go. I said that you knock it down.
Any extended rest that Chris Paul can get is better for the Suns.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think so too. My only thing is this: how many times, though, guys, over the years have we as sports fans seen teams get that early sweep, get that break, and then they come back and they're rusty? How many times have we seen that?
Yes, but the Chris Paul caveat is there.
Yeah,
of keeping Chris Paul healthy. He is the engine that moves this Suns team. It doesn't matter. He's not the first best player, second best player on the team, but he is the engine that moves that team. Healthy Chris Paul, this is a dangerous team.
I still get made fun of because 3 months ago I said he was the MVP, which I know Jokic
he wasn't the MVP, but
I said it 3 months ago and I got made fun of.
Phoenix fans are chanting it now. They're all on the Chris Paul MVP train. To Jackson's point, though, when you have a guy that's a veteran leader like Chris Paul, and let's not kid ourselves, let's be for real about it, he's not going to have many more shots at this. This is it for Chris Paul. This might be his best good run. So if you're Phoenix, you want him on all cylinders. You want him 100%. You want him being able to do everything he possibly can. And this is a lot of talent working around him because Devin Booker, like, I'm having more fun watching Devin Booker every time he plays. Like, it's just becoming a fun thing. And DeAndre Ayton is still growing. DeAndre Ayton hasn't peaked yet. Like, that's the scary part with him. So the young talent Phoenix has with the Chris Paul leading them, I can't say no to that. And if he's healthy, I'm going to feel a lot better about it, about their chances.
I you know what? I'll agree to that 100%. Here's the thing about the Phoenix Suns. Coming up when we were kids, Josh, we were all Bulls fans. And when the Bulls played the Suns, you couldn't tell anybody that the Bulls weren't going to win that series. However, I have always had a spot in my heart for the Phoenix Suns. Always. From top. As a matter of fact, the first team that put it on me in, I think it was Lakers versus Celtics.
Oh my God.
Was Tom Chambers in that stupid ass move that he did from the baseline. I thought I was hard playing as the LA Lakers, and he put it on me. And ever since
the rim dunk that he did.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I always had that soft spot for the Phoenix Suns. So I love seeing them in this spot.
We are showing our age, Brian. We're showing our age.
We are. Yeah, we are. I do it every week. Like, I'm the old guy at Vendetta. I really am. But I'll tell you the truth. Devin Booker is one of those guys. What really he caught my attention last season when, people were muttering about, well, Phoenix, this small market team and blah, blah, blah. And Devin Booker's just going to be this big fish. Remember, Jackson, we talked about that. We were talking about this on one of our earliest shows. And it was like, oh, this fish in this little pond, but he's not really going to do much. Look at this guy now. Like, look what he's doing now. And now you've got Chris Ball who's guiding this kid. And you've got that toughness. Isn't one of the Morris's twins is still in the front court, right? Or is he gone?
No,
he's gone. So
yeah. They were both on there like 10 years ago.
There's a certain producer on the show that will have to apologize to Jay Crowder.
She ain't gonna do it.
Hey,
Josh
Carl has kept your receipts, by the way. Did you see that message in the Slack that Carl sent?
No, I
don't remember it.
No.
Oh,
well,
okay.
Basically, Josh,
there's some Jay Crowder slander from an older post of Trey's.
Basically, Josh, Trey thinks that he's gonna get a black woman to roll back a point. He don't realize that's not how it works. You gonna get a black. You're gonna get a black woman to put her purse down on the floor before you get her to roll back a comment. Okay, I'm just saying. All right, so we got Utah and the Jazz and the Clippers, they're tied 2-2. Game 5 tomorrow night, and man, this is looking rugged. This is looking kind of rugged. The only others, like all the other series right now, are looking pretty rugged because Utah coming in thinking, yeah, we got this. Well, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard saying, whoa, hold up. We here.
There's a part of Kawhi Leonard that I love to see it because it doesn't always come out. But every once in a while, there's this little killer in Kawhi Leonard that pokes out. And I likened when he was in San Antonio, I always called San Antonio the evil empire because I always felt like Greg Popovich was a Sith Lord and no one knew it. And he always had one apprentice, whether it was David Robinson or Tim Duncan. And I always felt like Kawhi was that guy, but he became the Kylo Ren of the group and kind of went off and did his own thing. But Kawhi Loren peeks his head out every once in a while. And in game 4, Kawhi Loren showed up. If Kawhi Loren sticks around for these last games,
Favors soul.
Whew, you thought he did with a lightsaber. That's all I'm saying. If Kawhi Loren shows up in these last 3 games,
I love
Clippers are moving on, man. And I love Utah and how they're put together. And Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. I love how it's all put together. But if Kawhi Loren shows up, good night. It's over.
All I know is this: Rudy Gobert is still the most badass defender in all of NBA history because he ended an entire industry with one freaking press conference. He killed sports with one press conference. No one can beat that. Not even Wilt Chamberlain can say that. He may have betted more chicks, but he didn't end an entire industry. But yeah, I mean, I'll tell you one thing. Kawhi Leonard just like he has the look of what you want in your star player, but he doesn't have that Mamba, that MJ, that Magic, that Isaiah effect where he just wants to put his foot on your throat and end you. He doesn't want to just beat you. He wants to end you. And all the greats had that.
Toronto fans might disagree with you. That's all I'm saying there. But I will say this, like I said, it comes out in really, really short stints. Mm-hmm. But you saw it starting to peek its head out. Like if it gets a whole claw out the cage, look out.
So I think it's over. I don't think the Jazz are winning another game.
I don't think so either. I'm with you. Clippers in 6.
Jackson?
I picked Clippers in 6 originally, so I'm going to stick with my pick.
What's up with the Atlanta Hawks? And now I feel bad for Doc Rivers, because he has to call his team out like this is like a mid-season collapse in the Eastern Conference semis.
He's the Tobias Harris whisperer. Tobias Harris, so he only shows up if he's playing for Doc.
Now, if Philly loses this series, how quickly is Ben Simmons off this roster?
Oh, I don't see that happening.
No?
Ben Simmons is as integral to Philly as, a spoke is on the wheel. The reason why Philly is as good as it is because you have Embiid and you have Tobias Harris and you have Seth Curry. You have all this other talent. but the one guy that's able to hold it all together and allow those guys to do what they do is Ben Simmons. We saw what they did when all those guys went off. Well, I think it was over the weekend. It was like game 2 where all those other guys went off, and Ben Simmons had 4 points, and they still won. And they did that without Ben Simmons scoring. And it shows you just how important he is. Even when he's not at his best, his team can still win because he's on the floor and he's going to help other guys shine. So I'm not ready to go there yet.
Jackson?
Yeah, I mean, whether or not you can make an argument that he should, that he shouldn't. Philly fans are crazy. So if you're a Philly person, then they're going to defend you like crazy. But but that loss last night, I obviously thought that this series was going to be close, but last night's loss felt more like a Philly loss than it did a Hawks win. And
that's fair.
There's a discrepancy in both, and they kind of lost it there at the end. It was their own fault. They were up big, and Embiid couldn't make a shot in the second half. Blew a layup that was a potential game winner. So now the ball is, well, technically it's going to Atlanta's court, but it's back to Philly. I can't remember where they're playing at next. But either way, the ball's in Philly's court. They've got to win this next game. They've got to reestablish themselves. Embiid can't lose to Clint Capella. That's embarrassing for Embiid to get outplayed by Clint Capella in a second half of a basketball game in 2021. And that can happen. I still think I picked Philly in 7. Like I said, I think this is going to be a really close series. A lot of respect to Atlanta, but Philly's the better team. I think Philly needs to go on a run, win this next game, and then I think they could carry momentum and even just end it in 6.
Trey?
We know Daryl Morey loves shooting. It's just a matter of, if you play the NBA trade machine, are you going to find a better player than Simmons? And the answer is probably no.
No.
So they're probably just stuck with him. So, but I do think they'll find a way to beat Atlanta, whether it be 6 or 7. It's hard to find like a team like the Hawks in recent NBA history that have been horrible. They make the playoffs, and then all of a sudden they're in the conference finals. Normally the NBA has taught us there's a step to this process that, okay, we make the second round, make the conference finals, just like the Bulls. It was a maturation process. So
that's why that Hawks-Knicks series enthralled me so much. I'm like, 2 teams that have no business being here, and it might be the best matchup of the first round. It just blew my mind. But I wanted to watch it. It was like watching bad television. I'm like, I got to get in and see what happens with this series. Neither team should be here right now.
And guys, we are 20 minutes away from tip-off. Game 5, Nets, Bucks. Wow. Now, everyone on this show, Josh, has been saying, we all know it's going to be Brooklyn coming out. It's going to be Brooklyn. But Giannis is like, whoa. Hold on a second. My big fat Greek wedding, folks. Don't forget about what I'm bringing to the table. 6'11", ripped. I slam things. I pick them up and put them down. I pick up this team on my shoulders, and is he going to pick up this team and carry them to the conference finals?
I made the case earlier, Trey. We were talking about the Canadians being the beneficiaries of the Leafs being the Leafs. This could be a really big case where the Bucks are the beneficiaries of the Nets getting hurt at the wrong time. I am not, and this is nothing against Giannis, but how many times have we seen in the past couple of years this Bucks team have higher expectations and they not fulfill them? Mm-hmm. And how many times has Giannis been part of the reason why? If they win,
absolutely, it's their system because they only have one speed.
Right. If they win the series, nothing against them. Credit to them for doing it. But part of me is also saying you needed James Harden to not play a few games and Kyrie get hurt mid-series to pull it off. And once again, nothing against Milwaukee, but history outside of Milwaukee, that's how they're going to look at it, if that's the case.
Jackson?
No, I agree 100%. KD, I think, is when he's 100%, is arguably the best player in the NBA. There's no one that can get a bucket like he can, and he can even play defense when he wants to. And it's tough for one man to carry an entire team, especially in a modern NBA when you have the amassing of talent and the way that the game is played today. I know that Harden is good to go tonight. I've been keeping up to date with it. So Harden's good to go tonight. So we'll see how healthy he is. It's kind of iffy. They say his hamstring's okay, but We'll see how much he plays.
Oh, they've had the masseuses. They made sure that none of them were in the Houston area. But they've had the masseuses.
They've had like 5 of those little massaging guns just on his leg.
Yeah, you know what? They've got masseuses that are like 6'6", 380. That like, my name is Hans and this is Franz and we're here to massage you down.
You went with the Houston reference, man. Like that. Yeah. Too soon. Wow.
Yeah, that was wrong with me. I'm sorry, Courtney.
Wow.
I'm sorry. But no, I'll tell you the truth. But the whole point is they have had him in the therapy pool. They have been giving him the rub downs. They probably have Kyrie going to a specialist that's going to see if they can like X-ray blast baboon ligaments into his ankle to make sure that he's ready. Yeah, they've got witch doctors over him. They're putting virgin chicken blood all over his feet. They are doing everything they can. And then as far as Kevin Garnett goes, they've probably already sacrificed 3 or 4 virgins probably for the Vienna Boys Choir to make sure that his body stays healthy. Meanwhile, Giannis is just like, I'm ready to go.
I think you meant Kevin Durant. You said Kevin Garnett.
Yeah, I meant Kevin Durant.
He loves doing that.
Brooklyn Nets legend Kevin Garnett.
Yeah. But Trey, I mean, how do you see Game 5 shaping up tonight? And is Game 5 going to be what further shapes this series, or are we going to 7? And is this just going to be a slugfest?
I think people that have seen my shows in the past know how I feel. I will never bet against Kevin Durant in a series as long as he's healthy. As long as he's healthy, I don't care who's around him. I'm picking him. And since he's left Russell Westbrook, he wins every single time. So if Harden's good to go tonight, and
real quickly, there was a survey that came out. It was about a week ago or so, and it was every state's most hated players. So you had like most of the country, it was LeBron, but then out west you had like KD and you had Kyrie, like in New York. One state of the 50 states in the union was hated Russell Westbrook the most.
I'm responsible.
Pennsylvania, and it's 100% Trey Daubert is the reason why Pennsylvania.
I have about 30 articles, and it's 100%. Yeah,
it's 100% Trey Daubert. He has carried an entire state of hate.
This has been probably one of the best editions of the Tanndemonium Sports Show to date. And this happens every week. This is one of the only shows on the internet where you're not just gonna get good sports analysis. And it sure as hell ain't coming from me. It's coming from when we have guys like Trey come on, or when Jackson starts, or we get pros like Josh Taylor come on. This is where you're getting it. And I mean, I'll tell you guys the truth. Even as the casual fan goes, I am not going to bet against Kevin Durant. I said his name right this time. I did pick the right guy, because the bottom line is he is a throwback to me to the golden era of the NBA, where he wants to beat you. He wants to beat you. He takes everything personally, and he wants to go
sometimes a little too personally.
Sometimes a little too personal.
I got the burner.
But he wants to go out on that floor every night, and he wants to shut up the haters, and he wants to show. Matter of fact, I think that LeBron being in the NBA makes Kevin Durant even better, because he always wants to top LeBron, because LeBron got so much more hype than he did. And LeBron continues to.
I want Kevin Durant to be the villain. I want him to embrace the role of the villain. It's amazing that Trae Young is starting to do it. He started doing it in the Knicks series. I'm like, Trae Young, just stay on that path of being the villain, because I'd love to see Kevin Durant become that guy.
Oh, absolutely.
I'd love to see Kevin Durant just become that absolute
mean
killer that can actually do pretty much the work by himself. I'd love to see that happen. I would love to see him try to carry this team in the next 3 games. I wouldn't bet against him either, but I'll say it with this caveat. I think the Nets could do it. If Kevin Durant does play out of his mind, it's possible. But for all intents and purposes, if that happens, this falls on the Bucks, because as much as I expect Kevin Durant to give everything he can to put this team over the hump, the Bucks better be the one to come out of this, because they're in better position too. They have the better position team right now as currently constructed as far as health goes. The Bucks are out of excuses. And if Kevin Durant comes back and let's say he does do what we all expect him to do, what's left for the Bucks to lean on as to how this happened?
Bud's gone.
bad.
If that happens, Bud's gone.
That's
Yeah,
it.
and I'll tell you the
He's gone.
truth. And I'll tell you the truth. What's really crazy to me is the fact that and Jackson and I talked about this before, they've mortgaged their entire future on now. So if the Bucks
Specifically Drew Holiday.
And they screwed up the
specifically
Bogdanovich trade.
Yeah.
Ooh, point taken.
Yeah.
Point taken.
So the bottom line is, if they don't make this happen, if they don't go to the finals, hey, number
This is
one,
what you get for being loyal.
yeah, and Giannis is going to be that story where, man, this guy was so great, but he could never win it. He did not learn from the past. He did not learn from Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Ooh,
Yeah, I went there.
you went there.
I went there.
See, as a Kareem defender and as a guy who still esteems Kareem as the GOAT to this day,
Oh, he
I make
is
that point a lot. People look at me like I'm crazy, but it's
Kareem is absolutely the GOAT. I still to this day will insist that if Kareem in his prime came into the NBA of today, we wouldn't be talking about half the guys that we talk about right now. It would be all Kareem all the time.
I'm covering my mouth because this is a discussion I can have for 2 hours, and I'm not going to engage. I'm leaving it alone.
You
Save
know what?
it for another show.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we are so over. Like, Courtney is going to take me to the woodshed right now.
Yeah. Courtney and I have another show we got to work on right after this.
Yeah.
too.
So listen, thanks so much, Josh. So great to have you on the Tanndemonium Sports Show for the first time. We definitely hope to have you back soon. I know you and I had some discussions for some talks. We'll definitely get this set up. Congratulations on the new baby. And I definitely look forward to seeing you. And I definitely look forward to seeing you next year because we changed. We put the deposit down on a location.
Oh, it's on. It's on. The turn up is happening. I'm excited.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, I got to make sure to get Trey and Jackson shit in the mail too, because Trey already called me out. Trey and Jackson.
I
both
live
already
in
called me
Pennsylvania. I can make it work. I'm just on the other end of Pennsylvania.
Just don't take the turnpike. It might run you a couple hundred bucks because you know. Tolls
Yeah,
and stuff.
do what I do and just drive through Pennsatucky.
Oh, don't take 22. Don't do that. Don't do that to yourself.
Okay.
That's what I usually do when I'm going to New Hampshire. I jump on 22. I ride that way and I go, yeah.
Whew.
I end up seeing I see State College and then I pass it quickly.
Yes, it's like it's there and it is gone.
Pretty much, yeah.
That in the drive-through strip club, but you know you'll cross that bridge when you get to it.
Yeah, exactly. No,
Drive
Jackson.
22, Jackson.
Yeah,
Trust me.
Jackson. Come. You know what? One day.
Listen, it's okay. Listen, that's on par with the strip club that I passed by in Memphis one time, where it was talking about free wings. Like that was the draw, free wings.
That's glitter. I want glitter. Why can't I have glitter?
There's an NBA joke in there, and I'm letting it go.
Yep.
Yeah. But I will say this though, Jackson. I'll take you if you do make it up. I'll take you down 22. You can look at the Beehive Strip Club that never seems to be open, but it's always there. It's never going away.
Oh gosh.
All right. So with that being said, Trey, I'm not thanking you because you own the damn company. You come on the show whenever the hell you feel like it.
Fair enough.
Plus, you're practically always on the show anyway. So
I don't know if that's
Presence
true.
is always felt everywhere.
yeah, your presence is always felt because it's like, wow, if I'm even a minute late on the show, I might be
Staring
on
down
Vendetta
like
Survivor.
the back of my neck as I work.
I know somebody said in one of the Slacks that Brian Tan is untouchable. It's like, no, I'm one bad show away from falling out of favor with Trey Daubert, and this show could get canceled.
You're gonna find
quick as hell.
yourself on the list for Survivor.
That's right, and I won't have no one backing me up but Jackson Law, and he'll be like, Psh, it's the Law-demonium.
I'll be like the second dude in the Nuggets jersey in the fight.
That's true.
Brian, all I have to say is,
yeah,
my pen.
pretty much.
You might make the list.
That's true. I love
Wrestling
that
fans
Chris
know what I'm
Jericho
talking
joke.
about.
I love that
Yeah,
Chris.
I get it.
Hey, that's what's
I
up.
got you.
So shout out to Courtney in the producer booth who's like cussing me out right now. Hey,
Punch in the air.
he's Jackson Law. That's Trey Daubert. And that's special guest Josh Taylor. This is the Tanndemonium Sports Show here on Vendetta Sports Media. Make sure you go to our sponsor, monkeyknifefight.com. If you got to do, especially for tonight, you got 5 more minutes to get in. Get your bets in now on monkeyknifefight.com. You won't be sorry. You'll win some money if you're smart. With that being said, I'm Bryan Tann. This is the Tanndemonium Sports Show. We'll see you next week with all new stuff to talk about. See ya!